For this evening, before we delve into the content, wanted to quickly, not even review as much as just plant a seed, plant a reminder for where we've come from. So very first session I had with you guys back in August was comparing versus competing, right? And trying to get that distinction right. So we're more focused on competing versus ourselves and not comparing as much to those that we play with and those that surround us. Our last session, our last sports psych session last month revolved around motivation. Where did that come from? As well as that loneliness that delved into the chasing the happiness piece of it. How do we create more happy moments? Because I think we all want more of them. And again, that was the focal point of last month. This month, let's get into it. Voices affect choices. So before we delve into the content, I'm not putting this one to you guys in the chat to say, hey, give me your thoughts. Just want you to think about it to yourself. What is a mentor? What is a mentor? Again, not looking for responses via chat, but something I want you to make sure you have a clear idea as to what does that mean to you to have a mentor in your life? And then to piggyback on that question, who can be a mentor? Not necessarily actually who can be, who is a mentor for you, right? Might it be a teacher? Might it be, of course, a parent, an older sibling? Right? Could be a teammate, could be a coach in a certain sport. Maybe it's something outside of soccer that's a great mentor for you. Then you have digital mentors, right? Especially this day and age when you have so many options and outlets to gather information. Might you have a mentor that you like to read whatever they have to write? Might you like to watch a mentor? Maybe Messi is a mentor, right? You're never probably going to meet the guy in person. Nonetheless, he has a valuable impact on what you do and how you do it. Do you listen to certain people, whether it be a podcast or just different outlets again out there? Maybe it's people that do music, right? So point being, there's so many areas to have mentors, and they're so important because it comes back to today's focal point, which is voices affect choices. Those mentors can be so valuable to have. So I just want to stress the importance of make sure you have them, because they can influence and help push you into a very positive direction. Just as important as it is to have mentors, it's just as important, if not more important, to understand that you can be a mentor, right? And that's sometimes not even something that people ask you to be, hey, so-and-so, would you be my mentor? It's, I feel like, probably going to be more informal, meaning they're going to look up to you, and maybe you didn't even know that, right? I think the obvious ideas might be that younger sibling that some of you have at home. It could be that teammate that looks up to you for various reasons. So just understand it's important to have them. It's also important to be them as we navigate this discussion today of how voices affect our choices. Last thing I want to mention before we get into the content is understand that you can best serve, you are uniquely qualified to best help the person you once were. Let me say that again. You are uniquely qualified to best serve the person you once were. Let me give you a specific example of myself. So grade point average going through high school, I had like a 3.4. For me, I was perfectly happy with that. My parents were perfectly happy with that. I went into college, and my first semester of college, I went to play soccer down in Arizona. First semester, I got 1 C, 2 Ds, and an F. That's coming out of me in high school, getting a 3.4, not bad, right? That's a mix of A's and B's. I go out of state, 1 C, 2 D's, and an F. For my standards, that's terrible. And I think for everybody on this call, that is not something to look up to. That's not an admirable snapshot to say, ooh, go copy and paste that, redo that one, right? So then I had a decision to make after my first semester of my freshman year away down in Arizona, and that is that going to define the future? Or do I need to take some responsibility in that and say, what do I want to now, how do I want to move from here, right? Long story short, I got put on probation, which means if I screw up again, I'm out. Fast forward 6 months, I got back up to what I felt like was pretty normal of me. I got a 3.5 GPA. Fast forward a year after that, I had a 4.0 GPA. So my point being, I am best able to serve the person I once was. I can relate to that person that has done fine in that academic space and being able to balance time to say, wow, what am I doing? Where am I at? How do I navigate out of this hole that I got myself in? And being able to speak to that. So understand as you go through your own situations, your own journey, you are going to be best suited to help the person that you once were. Those struggles that you go through, don't think you're so unique to say, I'm the only one that goes through them or this specific one. Be able to help that person and help them up when they feel like they have no one to turn to. Are you with me? So just wanted to plant that seed because, again, that's a voice that can affect a choice in the future. And that's something that you will have direct relation to as you continue to get older and kind of go through your own journey. 3 things I wanted to take about 30-ish minutes this evening to delve a little bit deeper into. First being intentional with what we do and how we do it. Next one, overcoming those negative voices because we all deal with them. And how do we get on the fast track to change? Because I think we all want to have that change, but it's like if we can not cut corners, but if we can just streamline it and get someplace a little bit quicker, I think all of us want that ideally. So we're not wasting time, right? And we can be more intentional with our time. So let me start here. Before we get into being intentional, I think it's so easy to say, oh, he doesn't do that well. She doesn't do that well. My older brother or older sister, they think those so perfect. Let's talk about you for a second. When you look in that mirror, would you recommend yourself as a son? Would you recommend yourself as a friend? Would you recommend yourself as a teammate? Would you recommend yourself as a classmate? Maybe you say yes to 3 out of the 4. Maybe you say yes to 1 out of the 4. I'm not, again, interested in the chat piece right now, but I want you to reflect a little bit in this moment to say, would you recommend yourself in different roles that you see yourself that you actually are in? I think that's such an important place to start from because, again, it's so easy to blame and bring others down to say they're not perfect and I wouldn't recommend them for that. How about us for where we are? The follow-up to that, as you think to yourself, God, would I recommend myself as this? What are the best traits to have as a son? What are the best traits to have as a teammate? What are the best traits to have as a classmate? And do you embody those traits? Do you embody those traits? And for those of you that say, I got that, like I'm good. Now your challenge is, can you be consistently good to take that and carry that and do that over and over again and rinse and repeat? And for those of you that are just like, I know I'm a bad teammate, or I know I'm not the best brother. Now thinking to yourself to say, I know this is what a good one would do. What do you need to maybe change? What's now within your control? And I think that's the beauty of looking at things, looking in the mirror, is that you get to control how you respond to something. When you know something's off and you know maybe I'm not doing everything I should, and you know what that probably should look like, now it's on you. It's not on your mom, it's not on your dad, it's not on a sibling, it's not on a friend, it's on you to make that change that you know you need to make a change for. Are you with me? So I wanted to start here first because now we'll kind of deflect into others because, again, it's voices affect choices. I want to start here. And the number one habit, I get asked quite often, hey, what would you recommend for this? And what would you recommend I do for that? The number one habit that you should be absolutely obsessed with trying to take it as far as possible is the habit of showing up. The habit of showing up has created every single opportunity I've ever had has come from that one habit of showing up. And think about it, it's so easy to say, I show up every single day. When you want to commit to something, do you show up when you don't maybe want to show up? Because that's one of the things that the very best have learned to do is they will commit to doing something. They'll commit to doing what they don't want to do when they don't feel like doing it. Let's take 2 great players that are still playing 2 different sports, LeBron James and Lionel Messi, right? Lionel Messi's in his older 30s. LeBron James, I think older 30s. No, he's 40 now. Right? 40 going on 41 or somewhere around there. Point being, they went into the professional ranks in their teens, right? They weren't married. They didn't have kids at the time, didn't have big bills and houses. Are you with me? So I'm not saying it's easy to train when you're 17, 18 years old, but it's easier when you don't have some of those moving pieces, right? I can guarantee you at age 28, age 30, age 35, they're making some different life choices, saying, "Oh, my 4-year-old son just wants to play with me." They might not want to go to training, right? They're waking up days when they're sick at 36, or LeBron when he was 36, waking up and some days like, I am sore. And I wasn't feeling like this when I was 23. He's not going to feel like going to training. But if you want to be really good at anything, you're going to commit to doing what you don't want to do, and when you don't sometimes feel like doing it, and that's what's going to separate you from other people. So understand, number one habit you should be absolutely obsessed with mastering is the habit of showing up. Number two, can you work through those moments to say, I don't want to train today, but if my goal is to be here, I need to get beyond that want and say, I need to do it, right? There's going to be days you wake up and say, I don't feel like doing my early morning run. I don't feel like doing my early morning workout. Can you work beyond that? Because is it worth it to you, right? Is it worth it to you? And then it comes down to this, is that sacrifice piece. The best two things to know about sacrifice is, number one, it's mandatory. It's a prerequisite to get good at anything. Nobody ever doesn't sacrifice something and gets really good at something. It doesn't work that way. So it's a prerequisite to get good at anything. Number two thing that you need to know about sacrifice, it's optional. No one's ever going to say, you have to do that today. No, you don't. That's on you. That gets to be your choice. But understand something that we will all experience, and we probably, many of us in our own way, have already experienced, and you'll experience more of it, unfortunately, is pain. So the question I have for you, do you want to experience that pain on the front end by investing that time, by sacrificing your time, by choosing to say, I want to get good at whatever this is, whether it's soccer, another sport, your school, right? Are you willing to essentially work through that pain on the beginning? Or do you want to deal with that pain on the end of it? That pain of regret, that pain of, oh, I could have done that. I should be there. And now you got to live with those decisions, say, but I'm not. And I got to now own it. So point being is you're going to go through pain, either on the front end or on the back end. When do you want to deal with that pain? And I think that's something all of us need to consider.
Stop requesting.
Something you need to be able to navigate to say, number one, show up. Number two, work through and do what I don't want to do when I don't feel like doing it. And number three, when do I want to experience that pain for whatever it is that I'm trying to accomplish? Do I want to experience it on the front end, right? And say, I'm grinding. I'm going to work through it and sacrifice the things to get it. Or do I want to experience it on the back end with regret, right? Something for us to be mindful as we talk about being intentional with what we say we want to do. Make sure those actions align with our words. Separation season. Separation season, it's interesting with the state of Colorado. I feel like it's pretty straightforward. I call these separation seasons similar to the seasons of change, because in the summer, I think it's a great opportunity. It's a great season that if you're at the top of your team, you can make that gap bigger. Because what do a lot of people do in the summer? They take the time off, right? And if you're a little behind on your team, it's a great opportunity for you then to close that gap. We have a separation season coming up this next week. And it's maybe not a season, but it's a day. Right? You got the holiday of Halloween. Some people, and no fault to say you shouldn't take that day off. I'm saying, understand you can make a little bit more of an impact if you're behind to close that gap, or if you're already on top to make that gap a little bit bigger if you don't take that full day off. But be mindful of this one. Don't turn that holiday into a hollow week where you're looking on Monday saying, dude, I'm checking out this week. I'm having a good time, because that hungry player that's behind you, they're going to close that gap. Or if you're already on top, they're closing that gap. And if they're already on top, that gap just got a little bit bigger for you, right? So be mindful of these separation seasons or these separation windows that present themselves. Might it be a Friday evening? How many people are putting work in on a Friday evening? Or how about a Saturday morning when you have the weekend off? Do you want a full 2 days off? Fair play if you do. Just understand you're missing an opportunity to either close the gap or make that gap a little bit bigger. Again, nobody said you had to sacrifice for anything. That is a choice that you get to intentionally make with your time and how you want to allocate it, right? Then fast forward a couple months. What's the next holiday we have in a couple months is Christmas. Some people don't turn that holiday into a hollow week. They turn that into a hollow month. They're saying, I am chilling in December. I'm not doing anything. Again, own your decision. Because if you're that player that says, I'm going to take that hollow month off, you just made that gap a lot bigger for the hungry player that says, I'm going after it. Because I know that's a time that a lot of people hit pause and just take that break off. So just be mindful of these opportunities that present themselves and understand that you have these windows every week. Again, with what are you doing on a Friday night, a Saturday morning, or a Sunday morning to make that gap a little bigger or a little bit smaller, depending on which side you are on it, right? So wanted to point that one out with these separation seasons that constantly present themselves, not just 4 times a year within the seasons in and of themselves, but within each week. Let's bring it back to today's topic of voices affect choices. How about that circle that you choose to keep around you? Do they help encourage you to do those, put that time in, or do they discourage you from putting that time in? I think even better than encouraging is, do you have that friend that will do it with you? To say, you're doing what Friday night? Can I go with you? Wait, you're doing what Sunday morning? Can I go with you? Right? Be intentional, because those voices make it very, very easy or very hard, depending on which side of the coin that you choose to surround yourself with. Right? Be mindful of that circle. Again, does it encourage you or discourage you from what you're trying to go after? Understand this one. With 20 minutes of daily practice, let me just move that real quick. With 20 minutes of daily practice, you can get to the top of anything soccer specific, and relatively speaking, that being the top of your team, the top in your class, or learning a new skill. Talking about 20 minutes of daily practice. If you are intentional, which is what we're talking about, not saying letting things go off in different directions. I don't care what it is, the probability that you'll be bad at something after 365 days of commitment, that equates to 7,300 minutes of you being intentional with your time is basically 0.01%. It's not about intensity, luck, or talent. To do what most others won't, and what most others aren't, and that's consistent. Again, be intentional with your time and understand it will pay off, even though you're maybe not seeing the progress that you hoped you would on month 1. After 1 month, you're like, ought to be farther than I am where I am today. And that may be the case. Just understand with time, you're chipping away and you're chipping away. And I can guarantee you in 365 days, if you're consistent with that, you are going to be in a much different place, a much more confident place, and just a much more healthy place than where you are today. So don't discredit that 20-minute interval that you're putting in on a regular basis. Don't discount that, because it compounds on itself for sure. Be mindful of that one. You can text and you can poke fun at things. You can gloat about yourself and you can post about other people. Just understand what you allow in your life will continue to happen in your life, right? I think a lot of us will post about how frustrated we are, but if that's where you live, you're going to continue to be frustrated because you haven't done anything about it. You're allowing something that happened yesterday or the day before or a couple weeks ago. If you're still talking about it, you haven't figured out a solution, and you haven't moved on from a moment that you can't control anymore. So just be mindful when we talk about being intentional with things and intentional with your time. Make sure you're not just living in the past and continuing to bring it up, and you're not moving forward. I think that's a very simple idea and concept, but one that sometimes we don't need to learn anything new. And I don't know that this is telling you anything you didn't already know. Sometimes we just need to be reminded of, oh yeah, because I was there just yesterday wasting a half hour arguing with a friend over something that happened 2 weeks ago, right? Be able to move on and move forward from situations and hit that reset button and go from this point forward. You with me? Make sure we understand the responsibility that lies within how we are intentional with our time and not always hitting rewind to try to relive something that we have no more control over. You're going to find these people, unfortunately, people that for whatever reason, they don't like the situation they're in. They don't like the lifestyle maybe that they have. And unfortunately, they like to bring other people with them. Be very careful of these people, because if they get a hold of you, I can promise you they will keep you from being able to pursue the best version of what you want to pursue. Be mindful of these people, because when you grow, they crumble. They don't want to see you who's going somewhere, while they're going nowhere. And I put this chameleon on here because that's what people that don't enjoy their life, they'll morph and they'll change a little bit to adapt to be likable and to be liked. And maybe you've already come across that person in your life to say, I I was friends with somebody last year, and a month into it, they were a different person. Like they're talking about this or they're talking about that, and maybe you're there right now. Maybe you met someone in the beginning of school that they seem legit, they seem cool, you had a lot in common. 2 months into it, you're just like, that's not the same person I met. Like they want to be doing this and that now, and now you have decisions to make, right? Just be mindful of these individuals. Pay attention to your gut feelings, because again, if they're pulling you in different directions, you have your goals and they're not in support of those goals, you have a decision to make. Again, be intentional. And now we're navigating into how do we overcome these negative voices? Might you have this friend who their problems become your problems? When they're miserable, you're miserable. Mindsets, they can be contagious. There's no doubt about that. Maybe let's take it another level. Do you ever suppress? Meaning, do you ever not talk about some of the good things that happen in your life because you know it's maybe going to make them feel uncomfortable? That's not a healthy space and place to be either as a friend. And I don't know that friendships can exist long-term like that. Let me remind you, you do not deserve to live an unhappy life when you have reasons to be happy that are in front of you every single day. Understand that one. You don't deserve to live a life of unhappiness when you have reasons to be happy every single day. It goes back to, where are you allocating your time? Are you living in the past and worrying about something that is sad and bad and you have no control over? Or might you be mindful of what the future can be, and I can influence that future decision, right? So just be mindful of those friend groups that sometimes we choose to keep around, because it's hard, isn't it? It's hard to separate from those negative influences. It's hard to separate yourself, especially if it's been not just months, but years that you've been with those people, and you're just like, but they're so negative, and I can't share some of the good things that happen. But you know what else is hard is keeping them as a friend, right? Because you have to keep so much in. You can't move forward. You can't share things you want to share. Choose your hard. You can either choose the hard decision and say, I need to go in a different direction, or you're going to choose a hard decision to stay friends with them. Own your decision. Own your decision. But you know what the people that end up separating usually say? I should have done it sooner, because I'm in a better place for it. I'm in a healthier place here because I'm not having that mental struggle to wake up on a Friday morning or on a off weekend. I'm not getting that guilt trip from my friend group anymore, because I've got friends now that can support that idea. Whether or not they go with me, they support it and they don't try to pull me away from it. You with me? Own those decisions that we make. Just make sure you're not waiting for that easy decision to pop up, because that easy decision, it doesn't exist. It won't exist. Whether you're 15, 18, and you get older and older, those decisions don't become easy. It's your ability to navigate hard a little bit better. Remember this one. People will talk if you're winning. People will talk if you're losing. They love to gossip. So focus on yourself and ignore the chatter. I think we all get, unfortunately, bogged down with, man, I'm successful finally. I'm on a winning team, and now they're talking about how I'm always talking about myself, or we're losing, and they're saying how bad I am. I was trying to make some more this morning, and Mom was like, no. I think there are times, and I think we already talked about this topic a little bit, there are times to be selfish in this game. There are times to say, focus on you. That's not a bad place to be. It is if you do it all the time, but just understand people love to gossip. And when they like to gossip, that's when we have to have those earplugs to say, you do you. You focus on where you want to go, because you're going to get those haters regardless if you're being successful or you're not. You want my other sandwich? And now, how do you define success? Right? They're going to have their own definition, different than you. Remember this one as you move forward. Can I get this? Again, a good reminder, probably not telling you something new, but a good reminder for all of us. Yeah. Because I didn't realize. Might you find yourself here sometimes? Okay. You're lonely, you're frustrated, you're sad. Yeah, I'll finish. You're sad more specifically because a friend is sad. We can just set this up. Might be at home, might be at school, might be at your house. Okay. Whatever the situation is, I want to challenge you. When you find your moment and you're not there, you know you're not at your best. Which is when can you switch that mode from a mental standpoint and focus on, I'm not going to be sad simply because somebody else is sad. Again, I think too often we carry these emotions with us because other people have them. Choose that situation, choose that decision to say, I choose not to be unhappy because somebody else is unhappy. choose to get yourself out of situations. And as you continue to build these mental skill sets and have more tools in your tool belt, be mindful of people will continue to try to pull you back into a past that you've outgrown. Make sure you take responsibility to not go back.
Okay,
make sure you make that conscious decision to say, I'm not there anymore. And that's okay, and that's healthy. But if you keep hitting that rewind button,
my bad, guys.
that progress is going to be stumped over and over again, and you've done it to yourself. So again, be mindful of, when I find myself in these sad moments, because we all do them, be able to pull yourself out of them to focus on that next move that you want to make, right? And make sure you don't get pulled back into a past that you've outgrown. How do you do that? It goes back to being intentional. Make sure you're choosing to hang out with people that want to get better. Choose to hang out with people that want to grow. Choose to hang out and spend time with people to say, what might I learn, and what environment might I be a little bit more challenged than I am currently. That's a healthier space and place to be, right? Because now, again, it goes back to the first topic of today of being intentional to overcome some of these negative voices that we will all go through and are currently going through to navigate our individual journeys. Last idea within
I have
this
to join
space.
this meeting for ODP.
Every new level of life requires a new level of you. Don't forget that. I think too many of us carry over the same skill set too often and expect new results. For those of you that went from 8th grade into high school, build on those skill sets. For those of you that are freshmen going into sophomore year, build on last year's skill sets. Don't get rid of them. Didn't say get rid of them and hit delete. Add to what you already do. Make sure that you understand each new level of life requires a new level of you. You have to keep adding to that toolkit of yours to say, how do I become a little bit more valuable? What small change can I make to say I'm a little bit better? And now that competition piece that we talked about in our first session back in August, it's you versus you. Can you beat yourself from 1 year ago? Can you beat yourself from 1 month ago? Those are things that you need to be able to answer, and now you're answering to yourself. You're not reliant on your coach or your parent or a teacher to say, hey, I think you're a better version. It's how can you definitively say, I'm adding to my skill set and where I'm at, right? Again, that's within your control. Remember these 3 people as you continue to get older. Remember the people who helped you in tough times. Remember the people who ignored you in tough times, and remember the people who put you in those tough times. I think, again, not something I'm probably giving you new information with, but a reminder for all of us as we navigate these situations in what we call life. Remember those 3 people to help you make clear decisions, to associate yourself with them, or to associate less time with them. Let's talk about getting on the fast track. How do we quickly and confidently get on that track to be able to change whatever it is we want to change in life? Number 1, change those you keep in your inner circle. I'm not talking about how many followers you have on social media on any one platform, because those are people you are not going to call late at night when you really need something. I'm talking about the people you're probably limited to 1 hand, and maybe it's even less than 3 fingers to say, when I'm in a bind, I go to that person, or I go to those 2 or 3 key individuals. Well, are those 2 or 3 key individuals in support of what you want to do? And if they're not, that's going to put you on the fast track to make a change in your life, is to say, maybe I need to change that closest inner circle that I have around me and surrounding me, because those voices that I value most are going to affect my choices. And then understand you can choose to either keep them or you can choose to move away from them. But that is your choice, and you have that power, which alludes to this second one. Stop blaming other people. Stop blaming maybe that best friend that you know you should disassociate from and saying, well, but he made me. Stop. Look in that mirror again. Have you ever been told, hey, the older you get, the better life will get? That is a lie. It is a lie if you continue to blame other people. It is not going to get better when you don't take accountability. It will get better when you can look in the mirror and say, how was I a part of that situation? And how can I now be a part of the reaction that I know I want to be a part of? Now you've taken that power back. When you blame other people, you're reliant on those people to make a change in order for you to make a change. When you accept that responsibility, now that you've taken that power back to say, but I can react to how I choose to move on from this moment, right? Make sure you are not blaming other people for those situations you're in. That is going to put you on the fast track to be able to create change and positive changes that I know you want to make when it comes to making a change on anything, whether that's where you're at on your soccer team, where you're at in school, or where you want to go in general. Number 3, let me get this out of the way again real quick. You can't be the person you used to be and the person you're going to be at the same time. You love to sleep, but you want to not just be one of the best on your team, you want to be the best on your team. And maybe in your player journal, you're just like, I got to wake up early and put the time in. You can't be the person you used to be who loves that sleep and the person you want to be that needs to sacrifice that sleep at the same time. You have to give up one to get the other. You with me? You either need to change your goal to say, to be the best, I'm not willing to invest that time. Fine, enjoy that sleep. Or are you willing to sacrifice that to say, but I want to get there and it's worth it to me. I have to give something up. You with me? You can't be the person you used to be and the person you want to be at the same time. Own your decisions to get there. If you want to know the path forward, talk to someone who's on their way back. Meaning, find those mentors. Find those people that can be a positive influence for you to help you get places that you want to get. That is going to put you on the fast track. Yes, you can have your own experiences and you can figure it out. Just understand that's not putting you on the fast track. That's going to take a little bit more time for you to navigate your own situations and your own stories, right? Find those mentors that can be a positive influence for you and for where you want to go. Move toward what you want, not away from what you had. You're going in the same direction either way, but that energy, it's completely different, isn't it? If I know I want to get there, my energy is much different than if I'm looking over my shoulder saying, are they coming too? Are they coming? One, you're moving in a positive direction with a positive energy. The other one, you're always looking over your shoulder in the fear of somebody else touching you. You and I both know you're going to be in a much different place mentally when you have a distinction between the two. You with me? So be mindful of those ideas to help guide you in those directions. Last thing I'll leave you with here, you are always one moment, one conversation, one decision. You're always one of those things away from changing the rest of your life. So if you're in that low moment right now, you're just one decision away from putting your life in a completely different direction. And for you that says, I'm good, I'm in a good spot, I got a good support group, understand you are one moment away from that changing drastically. Be careful. All of us are riding that line constantly. You're always one moment, one decision, and one conversation away from your life changing for the better or the worse. It is that easy to go either direction. Understand that and accept that, right? Don't let those lows get too low and don't let those highs get too high. For those of you that are just like, Nick, I didn't learn anything new out of those 5 points going on the fast track. Sometimes we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. So maybe sometimes it's less information and we need to make sure we have more action. Okay, we knew those 5 things. You knew those 5 things. Are you applying those 5 things? You're just like, check, check, check. Yep. Keep doing them. Keep being consistent with them. So whatever age you're at, if you're 15, can you keep doing that until through your 20s? If you're 16, 17, can you continue to do that all through your high school years? And when we're not there, those are the moments to say, what little reminder can I make that small change to make that one decision? And now I'm going somewhere completely different and in a direction I now want to go because I'm not blaming somebody else for the direction I went initially, right? I just made a detour, but I'm coming back. So we discussed these 3 things: being intentional, overcoming negative voices, and how do we get on that fast track to change? Hopefully you have some takeaways from there. Here's my concluding thought for you. Just imagine where you'll be six months from now if you choose to be intentional and you're not already. Imagine where you're going to be in 6 months from now if you choose to know how to overcome those negative voices and apply what you know now. Maybe you did have a new tool to put in your tool belt to say, I hadn't thought of it like that. Now I know what I know, so I'm going to be able to navigate those harder situations a little bit better. Think about where you'll be 6 months from now if you choose to get on the fast track to change. Stop blaming other people for where you are. Start taking that accountability. Look in the mirror and say, how can I affect this positively and be where I want to be? How might I be able to pick the brain of saying, hey, I have a friend who has an older brother who has a similar goal. He's already been there. Might I have that one conversation that takes me off in a new path. And I'm like, okay, now I've got some confidence because I picked his brain and we're jiving. He gave me some things and I know I'm not that far off. That was one conversation that you never had before, right? Be mindful of how can you now set a new path if you're not on the path you want to be on? How can you start today and say, in 6 months, I want to be there, wherever there is? Wanted to also remind you, I personally have these resources, but as you know, there's a plethora of resources out there in the podcast, in the YouTube, in the Instagram, social media in general world. But I wanted to put this reminder for you. For those of you that haven't listened to anything, fair play, just to, I guess, educate you a little bit. I don't know if any of you know Jeb Brofsky. I had him on recently. We talked about injury, navigating through injuries on a recent podcast there. Really interesting to get his take. I know some of you might be going through your injuries. It's isolating. It's an isolating feeling and a very lonely feeling to navigate that situation. I had a recent talk with a family friend talking about regret, right? We all deal with regret. So that was a recent one. I'm releasing one next week to talk about how do perfectionists get over some of those challenges mentally. They're just like, not good enough. Nope, not good enough. And we have some of those discussions. So again, wanted to drop that note. I know I have prior, but I want to just drop it again and just know there are resources out there if you want to work on those mental skills, because I know all of your soccer coaches, understandably, have the most concentration on your tactical understanding of where you should be, what positions to play, on your technical ability and your ability with the ball, and on your physical ability. Are you getting in shape and in soccer shape and able to withstand that over a 90-minute game, right? I think the tough one is that mental piece. So just understand these resources are here for you. Last but not least, I wanted to do what I always do at the end of these sessions. I want your feedback. I'd like to hear what you have to say. What is your biggest takeaway? What is another topic that you'd like to see in our final session next month in November? And again, I want to get your input on this one. So please take the time. It's 4 questions. It's not that time consuming, so I hope you do take the time. So until next month, this is this month, and we're checking out for now.